This is a response to a video called I Am a Utilitarian by Kuanslog, and it's on although I think it's also on YouTube as well. And I really want to pick up on just the last 30 seconds of your video there, Kuan, which is where you just do this kind of throwaway thing. You've been talking about utilitarianism and why and your own relationship to that, which I think is great. And you're citing various other systems and people who've contributed to those ideas. But in this last 30 seconds, you just throw in this line about what kind of overarching moral principles might be said to guide us, other than the utilitarian consequentialist exchange value calculation. And you say that one of those might be the long-term survival of the human race. I'm not sure if that's the exact phrase you use, but that idea that preserving the human race should be an overriding moral principle, or could be, or maybe is for you. I have to say I don't really understand that. I don't understand it in utilitarian terms, other than in that kind of calculation, which you kind of critique earlier on in your video, that the more people there are, the more likelihood of lots of happiness being, assuming that you can guarantee happy people. But I don't think you believe that. In fact, you criticised that earlier on. So this idea that ensuring that the human race will continue into the future can't be part of that utilitarian calculation, even if it could be guaranteed that every single one of those would be happy. So I'm just not sure where it comes from, really. I mean, I think I've got two grounds for that. I mean, the first thing is it's a hopeless quest, isn't it? The human race will not last forever into the future. We've been around for less than 100,000 years, which is a blink of an eye, isn't it, in evolutionary terms. So, at some point in the future, probably within the next, 10,000 years, maybe less, I don't know, we will either have... at some point in the future we'll either evolve into something else, if we stay alive a long time we'll evolve into something that's not human anymore, or we'll have, this particular branch in the tree of life will have found a way to cut itself off, which is more likely, we'll either leave the planet or kill ourselves. And both those things are possible, and one of those is going to happen for sure. It'll either happen in the short term, when human life is extinguished due to its own stupidity, probably, or will mutate into something else. So the idea that human life necessarily is going to continue we're on a hiding to nothing with that. I can see why thinking adopting that as a kind of guideline, as a sort of rule of thumb, might be useful, maybe as a moral guideline. Not because it has a direct moral effect, but because it might encourage behaviour which does have moral effect. So, for example, if we choose to believe that preserving human life indefinitely, in evolutionary terms, is a moral good, then that might encourage us to do things with the climate, let's say. Which again, there's nothing morally absolute about protecting a climate. It's just a bunch of chemistry. But of course it does have effects on all sentient creatures, and then you are back into a utilitarian argument about the maximising positive value for sentience, which is Peter Singer and those people, isn't it? So I don't understand that really, this idea. And what if the reverse is true? I mean, there's a lot of antinatalist stuff around, and I don't really want to get into that debate at this point, but a lot of the argument of that is that the idea that everyone can be happy, or that a majority of people can be happy, or that the average human experience can be raised above the 50% of happiness, or sentient experience generally can be raised to that extent. The claim would be that that's hopeless. That's never going to happen. We are brought into the world. Life there's a lot of suffering in life, and that can never be raised to a point where when it becomes more positive than negative. And of course the complement to that is that positive experience, happiness, is evolution's carrot as opposed to evolution's stick, isn't it? So all you're doing really is privileging the carrot. So that's the kind of argument from that. But just dismissing the carrot stick argument for a moment, if you at least suspect that there is probably more suffering in the world than there is pleasure, and there always will be, if not amongst humans, then amongst sentient creatures generally. I think that's probably true. I think it's hard to get away from that, really. Then the whole idea of continuing that endlessly into the future has an absolute negative utility, as does, increasing the population, those kind of arguments. Anyway, I'd be interested to hear what you think, Khan. Let me know.